Hello, this is Jay Mitchell, and we are back with another episode of the Libertarian Uncensored podcast, going over all the posts on the Libertarian Uncensored subreddit. Let's get right into it. So first we have Reddit, ACAB, Be Gay Do Crime, also Reddit, Trump needs to be respect the rule of law, and I posted that, and I said, shamelessly stolen from today's Stone Toss. I linked to the Stone Toss where that looks like the Antifa guy says, but he broke the law. Well, meanwhile, he looks like he's doing some kind of drug and has a Be Gay Do Crime shirt on. And I said, to the average Redditor, the only justice of law was when it is used against political enemies. Otherwise, it's the worst thing ever, They always hate when they always think the law is acting unjust, and, as I said, they say, like, all cops are bastards and Be Gay Do Crime, yet they suddenly care about the rule of law whenever a Republican's at the receiving end of it. So that just goes to show you that, it's really just, they really only care about using the rule of law when it's against the out-group, but never when it's against the in-group. And that's my thought on that issue. Then we have Supreme Court ruling in Starbucks case curbs labor regulation from Lemon Limelight. And they said from the New York Times, Supreme Court ruling in Starbucks case curbs labor regulation. Emphasis added, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Starbucks on Thursday in a challenge against the labor ruling by a federal judge, making it more difficult for a key federal agency to intervene when a company is accused of illegally suppressing labor organizing. The ruling claimed in a case brought by Starbucks over the firing of 7 workers in Memphis who were trying to unionize the store in 2022. Lawyers for the National Labor Relations Board asked a federal judge for an injunction reinstating the workers, and the judge issued the order. The company argued for that federal courts had differing standards when deciding whether to grant injunctions that reinstate workers. Some apply a looser standard requiring the labor board to show that there was a reasonable cause to believe that the company had violated labor law. Others use a stricter standard requiring the board to show that no reinstating the workers would cause irreparable harm and that the board was likely to prevail in the case. Starbucks argued that the stricter standard for reinstating workers should apply nationwide. The decision returned in the case to the appeals court. And then they added the National Labor Relations Act grants the NLRB authority to seek injunctions. However, the Act's language is open to interpretation, which resulted in a different standards for granting injunctions. Thankfully, the Supreme Court has provided some clarity on this point. Now, whether you believe the court side of the right party here is probably the more contentious issue, but a compelling argument in my eyes is directly from the decision. Emphasis added, when interpreting a statute that authorizes federal courts to grant preliminary injunctions, we do not lightly assume that Congress has intended to depart from these established principles. The court has consistently employed the presumption when interpreting a wide variety of statutes that authorize preliminary and permanent injunctions. Thus, absent a clear command from Congress, courts must adhere to the traditional 4-factor test. That is, if the government wants to use lower standard, departing from established principles, then the legislature has to do its job and create a law with clear language to allow it. This seems like a good principle to follow in the interest of separation of powers. This ruling follows a previous discussion separated in the same case. And I didn't respond to that one, but I definitely do think workers should have a right to contract with their employers, and employers should have a right to contract with their workers. And I think as long as they should both be freely associated to work with each other, and if they want to break off the contract at any time on either side, I think they should be able to. So I guess I would kind of agree with this ruling then, and that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Supreme Court preserves access to abortion pill from SCOTUSblog.com by CH for Locks, and that's a cross post from the Moderate Politics subreddit. And I guess I would agree with that. I've always been more on the pro-choice side, but I guess people should be able to take whatever drugs they want, I feel like, and that's my thoughts on that issue. And then we have voter advocacy groups asked feds to step in after Texas allowed some voters' ballots to be identified, from TexasTribune.org, and that's from Flimsy Out 5563. And I definitely don't think that's good, but I personally am not the biggest fan of secret ballot, but with that being said, that is the law of the land currently, so I guess that they shouldn't have been allowing some voters' ballots to be identified. That's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Supreme Court rules gun bump stocks ban is unlawful from NBCNews.com by Ninja Lover, and I didn't comment on that one, but I think that it's interesting how they're spinning it. Because they said, they repealed Trump's Trump era bump stocks ban. Normally people who say, Trump's policies were all the worst, or suddenly say this is a bad Supreme Court ruling, even though they repealed a Trump era decision. And I personally think it's good that they're doing so, because I think people should be able to have whatever weapons they like as long as they're using them to not hurt anyone else, and use them in self-defense, or maybe for like hunting or something like that. So yeah, I think if you want to have a bump stock, you should be able to have a bump stock, and I agree with the Supreme Court's ruling here. Of course, a lot of people don't, but then this is probably one of the instances where the DNC shows probably agree with Trump, because he tried to ban bump stocks as well, and look how that turned out. And that's my thought on that issue. Then we have Trump floats eliminating U.S. income tax and replacing it with tariffs on imports from CNBC.com by Paton 13, and that's a cross-post from the economic subreddit. And I personally think the first part's that's good. I think he should eliminate the income tax, but I don't think tariffs on imports are the right answer. I think tariffs are just going to make people pay more for stuff from other countries. And I can see the argument for protectionist economics, but I personally don't think that is that libertarian. I think the libertarian position is for a truly free market, and that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have a message from the LPNH from Ragnar OKXG, and that's a cross-post from the Libertarian Party USA subreddit. And they said the message was, Libertarian Party of New Hampshire, LPNH rejects Chase Oliver as Libertarian Party nominee. LPNH believes that the only feasible path for libertarianism is one which libertarians refuse to apologize for the police and instead stand up and fight for them. Many of us believe that this so strongly that we moved to New Hampshire from other states as part of the Free State movement. We believe our strategy for concentrating libertarians in New Hampshire to be the course that most likely to achieve liberty in our lifetime, and that given the present disposition of the nation, a national strategy is wholly inadequate to that task. The nominee has taken many actions which prove we cannot ultimately endorse him. Whether he is foolish, lacking courage, or potentially subversive, it is clear that he does not possess the necessary traits for libertarian victory. While the nominee was having a masked and distanced Thanksgiving dinner in 2020, Free Staters in New Hampshire posted to Pork Fest with thousands of attendees. While the nominee defends the chemical castration of children in drag shows for kids, we are teaching our children the values of reason, freedom, and family. When the nominee refuses to debate or engage with anyone who disagrees with his progressive ideology and instead calls them racist or bigots, New Hampshire libertarians will engage with anyone, anywhere, anytime, anywhere. When the nominee cheers on critical race theory and their other divisive ideologies, libertarians in New Hampshire have removed such topics from government schools and implemented the most radical school choice program in the country. While the nominee supported restrictions on speech, our party and our members have faced job losses, harassment, or deplatforming for fencing the values liberties. While the nominee states that thousands of libertarians who go to Pork Fest are not as people as running Mike Turner is eager to attend, the nominee is not someone who won't want his neighbor, and as such we cannot support him for president. Although New Hampshire ballot laws do not allow our party to prevent the nominee from appearing on the ballot, instead he received an entirely incidental benefit from being part of the same box as pedestrian drivers or chosen to endorse gubernatorial candidate. We will offer him no formal support as a party, nor will the vast majority of our members. We would like to thank the nominee for one thing, helping more libertarians wake up to the reality that the battle for liberty nationally is utterly hopeless it's in a great awakening among the electorate. When you recognize that, New Hampshire is here for you. Live free or die. And that was the tweet they sent. And personally, I think I do have some problems with Chase Oliver. Especially on a lot of his woke stuff, like the trans hormones for kids. But with that being said, if you want to support him, I think you should be able to. If you don't want to support him, I think you should be able to. So I support the right of the LPNH to not support Chase Oliver if they feel like it. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Judge strikes down Florida's ban on transgender care for minors from Lemon Limelight. From the New York Times, Judge strikes down Florida's ban on transgender care for minors. Key parts of a Florida law that bans gender transition care for minors imposes hurdles on adults seeking such care are unconstitutional. Federal judge ruled on Tuesday. Judge Robert L. Hunkel of Federal District Court in Tallahassee sided with advocacy groups of free families who had said they law stripped them parents' rights to make medical decisions for their transgender children. The law barred doctors and nurses from prescribing or administering transition-related medication to those under 18 and exposed medical providers to criminal liability and professional discipline if they did so, among other provisions. Other provisions of the law prohibited gender transition surgeries for minors. Those provisions are unaffected by the judge's order, so such surgeries remain blocked. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis vowed to appeal, since there is no question the state will win. And I personally think transgender care for minors is bad, and I think minors can't consent to it. With that being said, I don't think it's the state's role to stop that. Just like I don't think it's the state's role to stop murder. When the state tries to police anything, they're going to naturally exceed their authority, and that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Hobart man Caleb Adams pleads guilty to manslaughter for stabbing home intruder from Australian Broadcasting Corporation, and I posted that, and I said, without the state, who would jail you for defending your own property? And apparently, he might not have been inside the home, but they definitely used stabbing home intruder as the headline. So if that being said, I do think you have a right to defend yourself and your own property. And even if you kill someone, they violated the NAP. They broke into your house and they might be armed as well. So that's my thoughts on that issue. You definitely, so yeah, defend yourself and your property however you feel like. Then we have The Libertarian Leanings of the Desert Fathers by J. Stocks QQQQ. And they say the Desert Fathers were early Christians who left modern society to live in the desert, primarily Egypt. They are known for their mystical spiritual wisdom. While some refer to them as monks and hermits, it appears they interact with their neighbors and work to provide for themselves. I read this expert that describes libertarian and anarchist leanings of the Desert Fathers. Their perspective is very relevant for today. They did not view society as divided between the haves and have-nots, nor did they wish to overthrow the powerful in order to assert their own power. Rather, they wished for all to live and let live, and let their strength of their ideas, arguments, and way of life be that which won people over, rather than pure power and authority. And I'm going to skip that passage that they shared, but yeah, I think that would be very much libertarian. I would agree with that philosophy very much, and that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Pentagon Rant, Secret Anti-Vax Campaign to Incite Fear of China Vaccines from Reuters.com by Maddie O'Clock. And I didn't comment on that one, but yeah, it just goes to show you that the Pentagon and the U.S. government is really all about controlling the narrative, and that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Satire, man who agrees with the media, universities, corporations, and Hollywood thinks he's part of the resistance from Babylon Bee. And I posted that and I said, Reddit in a nutshell. That's pretty much Reddit. They agree with all the mainstream narratives, yet they somehow think they're part of the resistance. And then we have Arizona man charged with selling guns for use in mass shooting by Justice.gov by C.H. Sherlocks. And I said, would they charge a car dealer who sold a car that someone would go on to vehicular manslaughter with? I don't think so. That's why I don't think this is just constitutional. I think people have a right to free market and sell each other whatever they want. If someone, uses something someone sold you to kill someone else, that's their problem, not yours. And that's my fault on that issue. Then we have Green Party denied ballot access in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin from National Review from 2020. And I said, I posted that. I said, I definitely would be surprised if they tried this against Chase Oliver since he seems more left-leaning for libertarian, though I'd also argue that libertarian is the right code word automatically for a lot of people. And I said, I had a fun fact, the Pennsylvania AG at the time, Josh Spear, who almost certainly knew exactly what he was doing by kicking the Green Party off the ballot, later got elected governor in 2022. At least he let the Green nominee on the ballot for that race. And yeah, it just goes to show you that those in positions of power can ultimately kick you off the ballot for whatever reason they want to. And that's why, I think increasingly elections here aren't free and fair. They're rigged, especially for the two major parties. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have House passes defense bill automatically registering men 18 to 26 for draft from FoxNews.com by Ninja Lover. And I said, I heard they were adding women as well. Ultimately, I don't think we should have a draft at all. But, yeah, ultimately, it does determine who has the force to do what, and sadly, the government does have the force to use a draft currently, and I don't think that's libertarian, but that's how the way it is. I think people, if they do get drafted, they have every right to resist, and that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have voters have no rights to free and fair elections, NC lawmakers say as they seek to dismiss the gerrymandering suit from WRAL.com. By Patom 13, and I said, no one technically has the right to fair elections, just ask all the third parties. In democracy is simply tyranny of the majority. Besides, I don't see the average writer caring when the Dems look to keep groups that they think will steal votes from them, like the Green Party, off the ballot. Not to mention that the Democrats as a whole are more likely to prefer unelected globalist bodies and the unelected expert class making the laws. So that just goes to show you that, people don't care for, people will care for democracy, but only if it supports their narratives. On Reddit, one of the things they go against the most is the more red state legislatures making laws that they don't like, and that just goes to show you that they don't care for democracy when it goes against their narratives, and that's my thoughts there. So I think we're gonna wrap it up there. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.